During the Google interview process, you might have like a coding review that you have to do. What advice would you give for
Mm.
others who have to go through that whole coding interview process?
Specifically, interviewing for Google in technical roles is no joke. It's really testing your knowledge on those core concepts of computer science and data structures and algorithms, right? And how you can apply them to real life situations. So with a standard interview for Google, if you're coming to be a software engineer, you will have a series of, pre-COVID in person, but now like via Google Docs, technical interviews where you're faced with a prompt like, hey, create a function that takes in a string and it's going to return the reverse of that string or something like that, right? And they're going to be testing you on your ability to create that function and walk through the process of actually making the code that will be the most optimized for that function, right? Or for that prompt that's given. And the biggest issue right now is that a lot of people fight that like the interview process does not correlate well to whether someone will perform well at a company like Google. That's a whole nother conversation to be had. But
Hmm.
one thing that I always advise people who are interested in interviewing for Google is like you need to train yourself to perform well in the interview itself. Not necessarily to be a great software engineer at Google, but like the interview process you need to train for specifically. There's a lot of books, a lot of websites. Mainly, I always call out HackerRank and LeetCode for engineers to get familiar with the interview process so you can actually do some mock interviews. Carrot is another great organization that provides mock interview training for people because it definitely takes a different set of skills to make sure that you're being successful in it. And at the end of the day, if you have the technical content and skills, that's great. But it's pairing that with the ability to communicate and specifically communicate your ideas and your thought process well to the interviewer so that they can see exactly how you're able to solve problems. That's the key. And if you're able to do that well, you'll land any fang job out there.
Hey, what's up, guys? I just want to interrupt your video real quick. I promise it's going to be short. Asking you guys to do me a favor and hit the subscribe button below. Also, be sure to like and comment on our videos, letting us know what you think about them, and feel free to share it with a friend. I hope you guys enjoy this clip, and I'll let you get back to it.
I'm
Mhm.
curious though. You mentioned that your performance in that interview might not correlate necessarily to performing well as a software engineer, but what type of characteristics in that interview are the managers or committee members looking for in a good employee?
They're looking for problem solvers, right? I think one thing is that also I think to summarize it, I always say confidence, but you can take that a bunch of
Mm.
different routes, right? But if you have confidence, like I've been faced with interviews myself that I was like, I have no idea how I'm gonna solve this, right? Would I ever portray that to the interviewer? Of course not, right? So even though I'm internally freaking out, I would still portray myself as like, okay, this is gonna be a challenging problem. How do I break it down so it becomes more feasible to me, right?
Hmm.
So being able to keep your cool, take things one step at a time, and show that you're confident, even if you don't have the answer right off rip, is really, really, really important when it comes into this, right? So they're going to be looking at confidence. They're going to look at your problem solving skills. They're going to be looking at your ability to communicate, like I mentioned earlier. Um, People like to think that interviews are just a monologue. So I'm just going to sit there and start writing code and just talk the entire time. You should make it a
Exactly.
dialogue. They're literally trying to see if you will make a good fit for their company, right? Like, could I imagine this person I'm interviewing on my team? Will I want to collaborate with them? Will I feel comfortable working with them in the workplace? If you're able to communicate, talk with the person through how you're solving this problem, like how you're writing your code, show that you have empathy, show that you actually care about them as a human being. I think some people lose that as well, right? I would make jokes in interviews, right? I'll try to keep them funny and engaging. I will ask them questions about how they feel about their industry experience and how they like their team, like where do they see themselves. I and this is like my secret sauce I always say to people or students. My favorite question to ask an interviewer is like, how many years have you worked at this company? Say they say 3 years or 5 years. I would then take it back and be like, do you see yourself at this company for another 5 years, another 7 years, or whatever they say. And the amount of people I've caught off guard asking that question, it's like, dang, I haven't even thought about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some people have some crisis like in an interview because they like, I'm touching like their soul with that question, you know? So the more you can show that level of just being human, I think is also really important.
That's a great point. I've heard people say before, like employers hire who they like and who they want to work with. I mean, you're just echoing all of that. So
Exactly.
it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
It's not about
And
writing out the best pseudocode. It's really about, are you a fit for the department or the company, right?
Culture.
Yeah, all the culture. That's right.
And I'll tell you, I had an interview with a company. I don't know if I can mention the name or not, but regardless, I
Hey
was
man,
in
you
the
can
middle
do
of their
whatever,
interview
man. You can
well,
do
I
whatever
get it's
you
a
like.
good right. It was Salesforce, right, and it was for a web engineer position, and I think it was like 3 or 4 people, but they just appreciated my story and my background so much that we almost forgot to do the technical portion of the interview. And truly, when they gave it to me, they were like, you know, like I told them straight up, like I don't know HTML, I don't know CSS, I don't know anything about web design, but I'm willing to learn. And that rang more true with them than anything else. They're like, oh, you can pick up all these skills like on the job. And they still had me look at the code, and I like somehow guessed like the correct answer to like the error that was in their code. But they still gave me the offer because they just saw how dedicated I was to learning and how willing I was to adapt to like their team, you know? So I don't know. Everyone has
Gotcha.
played to their own strengths, but that's what I did when I was interviewing.